Welcome to the Bridge the Gap podcast. Here's your host, Dustin Ludke.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the first ever episode of Bridge the Gap. I appreciate you guys tuning in and watching. I'm super excited to start this podcast. I'd be remiss if I didn't start out with some thank yous. So first, thank you to Classic Mike. He is at Classic Mike GRFN on Twitter. He helped me out with the logo. Thanks to Hoov. So HoovTube on Twitter helped me with some of the drops. Thank you to Tobias Long and the Kid Lavender. You can find them on Instagram at the Kid LVNDR. They help with that awesome intro song and the outro song. So I thank for that. Thanks for everyone else that supported me and my wife, my kid, and especially these two guys. I'm going to bring on tonight's guest. We've got Steve and Joe from Front Office Pros, two of my best friends in the space. They've been super supportive over the past couple of years. Steve, Joe, how you guys doing tonight?
Well, Dustin, this is a full circle moment. When Front Office Pros first came on the map here, Dustin Ludke popped up in our DMs and said, "Hey, we like your show. We'd love to come on." And we were like, "What? Someone wants to come on as a guest?" And ever since then, the rest is history. So it's a pleasure to now be your first guest on your podcast.
Yeah, definitely. It's a pleasure to be here tonight with you, Dustin. Excited that you got your own thing going. I got to say that intro is pretty cool. So, the plug that you dropped there, it's impressive intro you got.
Yeah, if you're looking for someone, check them out on Instagram. Again, it's the Kid LVNDR on Instagram, Kid Lavender. The Kid Lavender, Kevin, good friend of mine who I've met through the space, was just talking about some other stuff, and he was mentioning his music. I was like, hey, would you want to do this? Literally gave them 2 tracks as reference tracks, kind of told them what is one, and they came back with that awesome banger, and it's awesome. So tonight we're going to talk about salary cap leagues. We're going to bridge the gap between what is a salary cap league and compare it to a regular redraft or dynasty league. Kind of hope make salary cap leagues a little more accessible for you out there if you've never been in one. Kind of have some questions. Hopefully we can answer all your questions. Steve, Joe, where can they find you guys if they're looking to have more questions about salary cap leagues?
Yeah, so you're welcome to reach out, direct message myself at Steve_FOP on X. Also the Front Office Pros X account as well. You can reach out if you have any questions. We have I believe, I'm trying to remember, Joe, you might remember where we actually have this, but we also have that trade inquiry form because we feel so often people ask us oh, well, what do you think? Should we do this and this for the trade A, with trade B? It's like, well, there's a lot of moving parts when you think about a trade, especially when it comes to salary cap type stuff. You need a little bit more information, so we try to provide a link there as well.
Is that in the bio or in the description?
It's in the bio.
Twitter,
I think it's in the bio. Yeah.
We definitely have a link somewhere.
And then check out their YouTube, Front Office Pros YouTube, or you can catch them on Apple and Spotify as well. So you guys have been rocking out there, getting some great content. Not just salary caps, but IDP and regular stuff. So you guys have been killing it over there. Looks like my wife and son are watching. So hi, William and Carrie. Nice to see you guys on there. So we are going to talk salary caps. Before we do that, we're going to play a little game.
What exactly is the game?
Well, it is not a quiz or a trivia contest, nor is it a test of brute strength or athleticism. At its core, it's just a children's game, and I would wager that some of you here this evening have played Would You Rather?
That's right, a classic Would You Rather for Steve and Joe. Now, salary cap leagues, and especially what you guys play, is IDP. So I have a Would You Rather kind of based around that. Which of these super stacks would you rather have? Would you rather have, now let's just talk Dynasty and Redraft. Would you rather have a super stack of Detroit Lions, so of Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jared Goff, and Aiden Hutchinson, or would you rather have a Cowboys super stack of CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott, and Micah Parsons? Steve, which one of those stacks would you rather have in a traditional Dynasty or Redraft league?
Well, I can already tell you what Joe's going to do. I'm going to do the opposite of him, and I'm going to go with the Cowboys.
Okay.
Give me. I mean, Dak Prescott, there's, a question as to what's going to happen for his future. Will he stay a Cowboy? Will he become a free agent? But CeeDee Lamb, arguably you could say he was the best receiver last year in the game. And I think I rate Micah Parsons. Me and Joe differ a little bit on the edge, but I rate Parsons quite high.
So, Joe, you going with the Detroit stack then?
Oh,
of
100%,
course, yeah.
Dustin. I mean, I love the Lions. I just love their play style. But Jared Goff, man, he doesn't get enough credit. I mean, he was second last year in the NFL in terms of passing yards, and everyone constantly overlooks him. He was disappointing with the Rams, but him and Ben Johnson's got something going in Detroit. And give me Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, there's no true outside of Sam Laporta. There's not a true, wide receiver 2 option on this team yet. They're hoping that Jameson Williams takes his next step in that. So Amon-Ra St. Brown should just be peppered with targets once again this year. And then Aiden Hutchinson, I mean, and it's just not a Michigan homer pick. I mean, Aiden Hutchinson really is an impressive player. He's highly rated for me in terms of IDP. The problem I have with Micah Parsons is I feel like the Cowboys honestly limit him. I feel like they should let him play more inside linebacker and also move him on the edge because it's just too easy to take him out of games when he's just specifically playing at the edge rusher position.
For those of you who don't like that take, don't.
How was my son's drop of let him cook, Joe?
Okay. I was gonna say, I'm like, what is that?
Yeah.
But I was gonna say, don't watch our dynasty defensive end rankings with tears because Joe's got Aiden Hutchinson quite high. I think there's a little Michigan bias in there. But.
Yeah, and full disclosure, me and Joe are both Michigan fans. So I would also take the Detroit side. I personally love Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think he's the better receiver. Now, if we're talking salary cap leagues, Steve, you took the Dallas side. Does the fact that Dak's future is up in the air, even if he signs a deal, you might be looking at the highest paid quarterback. CeeDee Lamb wants a new deal, so he might get something north of what Amon-Ra St. Brown's getting. And Micah Parsons got 1 year left this year, and then he's got a club option. He's coming up on a deal, whereas Detroit's a little more locked in. That doesn't sway you in a salary cap league?
No. Those guys are actually worth it. I'd have to pay Jared Goff what he's getting paid. That's a travesty. That's going to be such a horrible contract for the Lions. You guys should just become Lions fans. You guys are – I'm speaking to the Lions craze over here.
They're one of the teams in the NFC I root for. Them and the 49ers. I just love their play style. Just love the grit and
physicality.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. That's football, man. I'm so bummed with the direction football is going, but they play football.
Yeah, and I think Dan Campbell's a great motivator of men. I don't think he's necessarily a great X's and O's head coach, but I love the culture he's built there. I agree. Jared Goff does have a huge contract. He's making $53 million a year or something along those lines. So in a salary cap league, that might skew things. If you can save some money later on, I think that's worth it. But if we're just talking straight stacks, I'm taking Detroit. So let's talk.
Your podcast here, one quick here. Your podcast is perfect because this conversation right here between the three of us is basically an echo chamber. But basically, the two of you being like, "Oh yeah, I agree," and then I'm just like, I'm up here being like, "I can't believe these guys."
That is our relationship as a whole, right? Like me, Steve, me and you never agree. Me and Joe always agree. So
it's true. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So let's talk about salary caps. Let's bridge that gap for the listeners. Joe, what do you like about salary caps that are similar to a redraft dynasty? What is the similarities there between a salary cap and a redraft and dynasty league?
Yeah, honestly, just what salary cap's able to do, it just creates player movement and it creates you to make decisions. You can't just hold all these young players on your team forever and ever because, I think we can get the max at 6 years, but typically 4 or 5 year contracts these guys are on. And, cap moves quick. We adjust the salary cap with the NFL as well. So, and then players just want more and more money. So, I just really that's what I like about salary cap leagues because it's that extra player movement that isn't typically there. And that's also why, a lot of times there's orphans in a traditional dynasty league because if a team can't battle that stacked team and they feel like they're out of it, then they're just, I don't know what to do.
Yeah. So Steve, if I'm a redraft, I personally don't play any salary cap leagues. I just play dynasty, some redraft. If you're coming to me and go, hey, you should play salary cap, what's the similarities there that you can pull out of that to make me want to play salary cap? Is it the same strategy wise? Is it the same? Does player evaluation, is it the same or similar, close enough when you get into a salary cap league?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you go from redraft to dynasty, there's a little bit of a jump. That's an adjustment that you have to take. And I think from dynasty to salary cap, there is an additional adjustment you have to make, as Joe's talking about, because you're dealing with the contracts. I think the similarity, and I think ultimately what I think people would really enjoy about a salary cap league is a sense of ownership. I think that's all. I mean, a lot of the reason why people like fantasy football is the idea of being able to be a general manager. You get to be, you watch your team, whether you're a Lions fan, we're talking about them before, you see the moves that they make and you're like, I could be doing better. Or why did they do that? Or why did they draft that person? Right. So it's like that on steroids, right? Because now you got to put, you have to put your money where your mouth is, right? In redraft, I take one guy this year and I could choose to discard him and not draft him the next year. With dynasty, I could keep him for forever, but I'm not forced to do anything. Just like the NFL, the reason why they have a salary cap every off season, you see the phrase, you see the draft, you see the carousel that goes on. There's so much mayhem, and as a result, your league then has to follow those same principles because it really is emulating the NFL. So I would say that the strategy certainly changes. There's a lot really to unpack there, but I think if you enjoy having a sense of ownership of who you have, you really will feel that in a salary cap league, like 10 times more.
That's interesting. I think that sense of ownership and sense of having a little more control is what we're looking for. And I think that's why we see redrafters go to Dynasty, right? Because they want to have a little more, a little more action, a little more stake, a little more skin in the games that were. So talk about your guys' offseason, because I know you guys have a very robust and full offseason. What does the offseason look like for you guys in your salary cap league?
Yeah, I mean, there's several different things. We got tag deadlines as far as like franchise tags, whether you're going to RFA your players, but then it's, choosing to re-sign, extend your players, or you're going to let them test the market or not. So, I mean, that's just kind of the offseason. Then we have free agency, which is big for us. And then ultimately, the rookie draft as well. So it is, there's some lulls, but for the most part, it's pretty jam-packed. And it's, it's fun when you're missing football. It just gives you something to do.
Yeah. So where are you guys at right now, Steve? Like what period are you guys in right now in your league?
So we just finished free agency wave 2. So, I mean, that's where your undrafted rookies are now in the pool, as well as any players who weren't signed. So we just wrapped that up. So now it's really, you're in training camp season. You're in, the going into preseason games. It's really evaluating your roster. We've expanded the rosters, and now it's just adding players from there to your roster. And now it's the evaluation time.
So let's talk about your guys' rookie draft. I know you guys just had that, and I think you guys just did a video not too long ago on that. What was that rookie draft like for you guys? Was there a ton of trades? Was it, do you see some different evaluations of players, of guys dropping or rising compared to what we've seen in redraft or in dynasty leagues? Joe, what did you guys see?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely it's interesting, right? It's like the different strategies of the GMs, kind of like in the actual NFL. There's players that other teams, I feel like, reach and take higher, but it's how they value them. And then there's definitely, value that slipped. But it was honestly, this draft was pretty active in terms of, people moving up and down the draft board. I know I traded back quite a bit to acquire more picks, but there definitely was a lot of trades that did happen.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I'm trying to think. We did do a video where we talked about the draft trades. I want to say there were at least 11, if not more.
So yeah, you guys,
there were quite a bit.
That's great. And you guys can find your guys' stuff on YouTube at Front Office Pros. Hit the subscribe button to them. If you're watching this, hit the like and subscribe. Help both our channels grow. Steve, let's talk about some of the news. We've heard that CeeDee Lamb is in that camp looking for a new deal. We've heard that Tua or Dak might sign this week and be the highest paid quarterback. How does that buzz resonate in your league, and what does that do if they do sign? How does that change your league? If, let's say, Dak signs a new deal tomorrow, what does that do for your salary cap league?
I mean, it's very interesting. I guess it really depends on how much you think the news matters. I feel it matters more than Joe does. We kind of differ on these things, I would say. You probably are going to feel the same way, Dustin, if I had to guess. So, but, like CeeDee Lamb, hold on. It's interesting, right? Because CeeDee Lamb's on his 5th-year option.
Yeah.
so is or I'm trying to think of Jamar Chase's too. I think he is as well. So they have 1 year left on their deal, but they're like, we want to get a contract now, and they're going to hold out. As far as, I mean, I don't know, you're not going to have probably a Le'Veon Bell situation. No. I would say it does. I mean, now I'm kind of going back a little bit. I think in a salary cap league, I don't know if it truly affects, because you have this guy no matter what. In a redraft league, maybe I'm like, should I avoid CeeDee Lamb? Is he not going to be in training camp? You know, like, is he not going to, be in football shape? You think about those things. For Lamb, it's kind of like, if you have him in a salary cap league, it's kind of like, well, I'm not going to get rid of him. Yeah. So I think the big thing will just be, I always kind of follow the logic of what does the NFL do? And then we have a blueprint of, if you want to sign CeeDee Lamb, if he just got signed a 5-year deal worth whatever amount of money, now you got a blueprint. If you don't, like, Joe has Dak Prescott. Joe extended Dak Prescott. So for him, I think that's kind of a gamble, because depending on what happens with Dak Prescott, Joe is kind of taking a leap of faith. So I think there's different strategies. I don't know if it's a one size fits all as far as how owners, react. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't think it's one size fits all. I think there's different. That's what makes it interesting, right? Is just how different people view things. But definitely, when guys get contracts, it's a nice way to figure out when the guy is time up in a contract in your actual league. Like, if he gets 4 years in real life, maybe you want to give him at the actual 4 years, because you don't really know, what's going to happen after that. Or you could look at Spot Track and see when, does the team have like a opt out? So is it really, even though it's a 4-year contract, is it truly a 4-year contract? That's the type of stuff that we live. But, it is interesting with CeeDee Lamb, because, with him holding out, like, if the Cowboys don't decide to pay him long term, do you trust him enough with whatever team he's going to go to, or the situation, to still be that guy to where you want to pay him long term? I know I did it with Dak, so I'm thinking Dak, even if he's not playing for the Cowboys next year, he's going to be on a team, and I feel like he's going to be fine wherever he goes. So I felt comfortable enough to extend him.
Yeah, that makes sense. I agree. I think Dak is a starter in the league, even if he's not with Dallas. Looking at the available spots, I think he's going to be a starter. I don't see a lot of other quarterbacks capable of starting. I mean, you got Tua looking for a deal, Jordan Love, but it sounds like he's getting a deal done. So, I don't think there's a ton of starting positions out there. Then you got rookies coming in. So I think Dak is going to be a starter. I think for me, if I know very little about salary cap league, I think CeeDee Lamb is CeeDee Lamb. Like, I think he's a top 5 receiver no matter what. Like, look at Devontae Adams. Like, he did it with, you can do it with anybody. Like, he could do it with Aiden O'Connell and the corpse of Jimmy Garoppolo last year, and was still a good guy. So I think CeeDee Lamb's going to be fine, even if Dak moves on and they go with a rookie or Trey Lance or Jameis Winston or whoever it is. I think CeeDee Lamb's going to be fine. Steve.
One thing I'll just say here. I do think you do have to be careful, though, right? Because, I mean, Joe, for example, this sounds like throwing you under the bus. I don't mean to, Joe.
All right, Steve, let's hear it.
Well, when Russell Wilson was traded to the Broncos, Joe had Russell Wilson. He was super ecstatic and decided, I'm going to extend him to a 5-year contract like the Broncos did. Now he's paying the price, because now he's paying Russell Wilson a heap of money, when in reality he's not worth, a fraction of that. So that's the gamble, and that's the risk. In a dynasty league or a redraft league, you don't have to deal with the punishment. I guess I don't like that word, but like Joe's now has to deal with the repercussions of the move he made.
Yeah. I think that's part of a salary cap league, is right. You are risking it, like signing a guy to a good, like, can you get a team friendly deal, like a team friendly deal for salary cap league, where you can get a guy kind of cheaper and then hopefully he exceeds that contract, or you get a Russell Wilson who you pay big money and kind of falls off. And I still think Russell Wilson can be decent this year for Pittsburgh. He's not going to be what he was. He's probably not worth the full contract, but he's probably worth a good portion of it. I think that's tough. Joe, what's the easiest way for someone like me who plays Dynasty, plays Redraft, to get into a salary cap league? Do you recommend I start one and be the commissioner, or do you recommend I try to find one out there that's coexisting and take maybe like an orphan or co-manage with the team?
Yeah, honestly, I think if you can start one, I think that's a great place to start. There's just not a lot of good like existing leagues with openings that you can really start from. I feel like, I mean, Steve as the commissioner in our league does a heck of a lot of work, and I mean, we've really done a lot of tweaking and everything since this has evolved over the 5 years we've been doing it. But yeah, I think if you are somebody that is comfortable being commissioner and you can set it up the way you want, with the settings, and because you kind of got to do some of this stuff custom. There's not a great website out there that just houses everything for you. So it's kind of a difficult thing. But if you're an ambitious person, feel like you want to be a commissioner of the league, I would encourage you to just go ahead and start your own thing.
Yeah. And Steve, what type of fantasy player do you think is best suited for a salary cap league?
I just think someone who's willing to try. I think that a lot of times people are just so used to what they're used to. It's like, you go to the restaurant, you get the same, the meal off the menu every time. It's like, okay, navigate, try something different. You might like the taste of that. I think, honestly, if you just have a desire to want to try it out, and I think once you do, I think you'll really enjoy it. I mean, you're going to have to like strategy, but I feel like if you like fantasy football, I think that's kind of a given. But this is just where strategy takes up, kind of a whole new level. And for us, right, not only is it salary cap, but it's salary cap with a full IDP.
Yeah.
So adding the IDP component with it on top of it even adds another layer of strategy. But I think for me, as far as my story behind all this, Joe and I have been doing fantasy football for years. And I think I just got to a point where, the redraft just kind of got stale. I was just like, I still am doing it, but I'm like, Joe, let's spice it up a little bit. Like, I'd like to try something different. And at the time, Joe and I hadn't even done dynasty leagues. We skipped right up to salary cap because, for us, we wanted to go all in. We wanted the player movement.
We hadn't played IDP either.
No, we hadn't either. We just really wanted.
You guys went in deep end real quick.
We just went off the high dive.
But I think, and that's where it started. So I think, for most people, I don't know. I mean, for those who are listening, how long you've been playing fantasy football, or if you've been playing for 10, 12, 15 years, at some point, I know if there was a part of me that was like, I kind of want to try something a little bit different.
Yeah, that makes sense. I do think, just listening to you guys and what I know about salary cap leagues, like if you're a manager that likes to have like January, February, March, and take some time off, it's probably not the best thing for you, right? Like as Joe said, that's an active time of year where you guys are doing re-signings and taggings and free agents in the draft. So I think if you're one of those guys who's on, or one of those people, guys or girls, that's on Twitter, or one of those things in February, like looking for news, maybe a salary cap league is for you, because you're plugged in the winter and spring months when some people just aren't. Like I'm in dynasty leagues where we have guys who just shut off notifications on their sleeper app, don't pay attention to news, and then they roll around come this time, August, September, and they're like, okay, let's find out who moved teams and who's where. Salary cap's fine. So if you're really a plugged in person, I think it's worth giving salary cap a shot and see where it goes. And I think you're right, Joe and Steve. I think it's very much if you want to have that sense of like being a GM and taking some risk and really, on some level, putting your metaphorical money where your mouth is on signing some of these guys, I think it's worth it. So any last thoughts, Joe, on salary cap leagues that you want to give to people if they're thinking about it or on the fence of maybe joining the salary cap league?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, like Steve was saying, echo what Steve was saying, just don't be afraid to try it and change things up. But, I was even abstinent to kind of go along with Steve and try this. And I was like, you know what, Steve, I don't know. That just seems like crazy and potentially a lot of work. But, it was a lot of work to start it. But now that we have it, it's, really not as time consuming as people would think. And I think that's one of the biggest barriers is people just think it's going to take a lot of time. For me, I mean, could just be because I really enjoy it, but I honestly don't feel like it takes that much extra time. And it's honestly my favorite league that I play in right now. So I'm happy that we started it up.
Steve, what about you? What's your pitch?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing to Joe. I really don't think you'll have any regrets trying it out. I think, it sounds like a lot, but the off season is long. I mean, with the season ends, I mean, really, you got playoffs in January, but the season's basically over in, January. You've
December
got
even.
Yeah, so you got January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. You're talking about 9 months, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, things are really stretched out. It just helps you to kind of stay a little bit locked in. You're interested in who announces for the NFL draft and the combine. You're interested as to who signs where. Even though you're not even doing anything for your league, you're interested like, oh, Josh Jacobs went to the Packers. Oh, that has implications. Oh, like you follow this. Oh, Barkley went to the Eagles. So like your brain is going, you're following these things, and then you get to then react to that news later in the summer. So it's like, I don't really feel it's that much more work. I just think it helps. Like Joe says, I hear so often, so many people are like, oh man, I can't wait till football comes back. Like it's so long until football starts again. I mean, I might be nuts, but I actually enjoy the offseason more than I do the regular season because it's all the team building. If you're watching Hard Knocks right now with the Giants, you're seeing behind the scenes the team building that's going on and how the Giants are, figuring out how they're doing things. It's like you get to do that. And it's not to say that the regular season isn't fun. That's always fun, but it's different, and it really does add a uniqueness to it.
Yeah. So if you guys are out there watching this, if you have questions about Salaray Cap Leagues, drop them in the comments. If you do it live, we'll get them. If not, we'll try to answer after the fact. And while we're talking about this, we're going to talk about these guys signing. Let's get into our draft for the night. And what we're going to do is me, Joe, and Steve are going to draft players, and I will share a screen of 2025 free agents. So what I did here is I put together a list of not all, but what I consider the top guys at each position, their age, and then kind of gave them a contract. I looked at some Madden. I had some people run some Madden simulations, looked at Spirac with some guys signed. And what we're going to do is we're going to draft a quarterback and 3 flexes as a team based on these free agents. And we will go Steve, Joe, then me in a snake draft. So quarterback, 3 flexes. That means, Steve, you are up. Who are you going to take with the 101 based on these players and their projected contracts?
Now, Dustin, I gotta ask, because it's like super flex, like the quarterbacks matter more. This traditional fantasy.
It's just pretend like you're just playing 5 players, so quarterback and 4 players, quarterback and 3 flex. So they're no super flex.
Okay, I'm gonna operate as if it's in our league, and in our league, quarterback matters the most.
Okay.
So in that situation, my first pick, I'm gonna go with Jordan Love. 26 to 6 years, $52 million.
All right.
I'm not going to consider Dak Dak, Tua, and Jordan Love are the ones I would consider at this point. And to me, we don't know where Dak's going to be, next year. We don't even know where Tua is going to go.
Or Jordan Love.
Yeah, but there's enough smoke going on that I think Jordan Love gets signed before the beginning of the season. I think they're very close on a contract. I think he's got the most upside. So that's who I'm taking.
All right. I mean, that makes sense. I was wondering if the 6 years, does that scare you off at all for Jordan Love, having him locked into that contract for 6 years?
I think that's a great contract because I wouldn't be surprised if the Packers give him a 5 or 6 year contract as well. He's not getting a 3 or 4 year deal. So
yeah,
I have no issue with that.
All right, Joe, you've got the 102. Who are you taking out of this group of 2025 free agents?
Yeah, it's interesting. I would have done the same thing that Steve did there and would have gone ahead and taken Jordan Love. Obviously, he's not available. So I'm going to go a little different route, and I'll go ahead and take CeeDee Lamb.
And so why CeeDee Lamb over some of these other guys like a T. Higgins or, even a Diggs, an older Diggs on a 2-year deal? You get CeeDee Lamb for 5 years for $35 million a year. Just about the going rate for a top receiver right now.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like the per year basis was pretty good, and 5 years to be able to have CeeDee Lamb, I think is good amount of years. It'll put him at age 31, which we still see guys be productive there. So versus like you mentioned, Stephon Diggs, he's already 31, another 2 years on top of that. He's also only playing for the Texans for this year. Where does he end up after that? There's some question marks there. So CeeDee Lamb was, if I didn't go quarterback, CeeDee Lamb was a pretty easy choice for me.
Yeah. So that puts me up for 2 picks in a row. I thought you were going to go quarterback, Joe, which kind of made my decisions easy. So I'm debating here because if you would have went quarterback, I probably would have pulled the trigger on 2 wide receivers. I'll take the first one. I will take T. Higgins at 5 years for $33 million. I think T. Higgins is just as good as CeeDee Lamb. I mean, he's still a wide receiver one no matter where he goes. He's a slightly tier below, but I get $2 extra million a year, same amount of years, but I'm a little bit cheaper. I think T. Higgins can go to a team and be a one. I think he can be up there in that upper echelon on a different team. I don't think we see it right now with obviously Jamar Chase is there and Joe Burrow's been hurt, so I think he's been held back a little bit. So I'll take T. Higgins. Now for my second pick, I had thought about taking Brandon Ayuk at 5 years at $32 million. Again, another value there, but I will go ahead and lock in Dak Prescott for 3 years for $56 million. It's a little pricey, but at 31, I get him until he's 34, 33, 34. I'm okay with $56 million a year. Yes, I'm paying up for the quarterback, but I think Dak is good enough. I think he's a starter no matter where he goes. We've seen quarterbacks be good at that age. I don't see a huge drop-off for him. Whereas someone like Tua, who's $2 million cheaper, but an extra year, I just wonder if Tua can produce if he goes somewhere else and doesn't have a Waddle and a Tyreek Hill with him. So now it's back to you, Joe, with your second round pick. Who are you going to take for your second pick?
Interesting.
So you get a quarterback and then 3 flex. So you've got one of your flex, you've got 2 flex and a quarterback left to draft.
Yep. So I was, I did consider Dak Prescott for the record, Dustin, with my first pick. But I did, decided to go with CeeDee Lamb instead. I will go ahead and take, I'll go with I'll take Keenan Allen on the 1 year, $3 million.
Little value pick. I like it.
Yeah.
So what made you go Keenan Allen over a Brandon Ayuk or even an Amari Cooper, who's 2 years, but a little younger, a little more money? Is that kind of what led you, just the shortness of years and the low money?
Yeah, honestly, get Keenan Allen for this year and the Bears offense for $3 million. I mean, that's a great price. And, what scares me about Ayuk is that 5 years, there's so much uncertainty right now. Is he going to get the deal with the 49ers? Is he going to go elsewhere? And, 5 years also puts him at age 32. But, a lot is predicated on speed and everything with Brandon Ayuk too. So that's some of the concerns there. Yeah,
and I like that you played the draft, like knowing that me and Steve have our quarterbacks locked in. You don't have to take a quarterback right now, right? Because we're not going to take a second one. So, I mean, we could, but the odds are we're not going to. So, Steve, you're back up for your second round pick. Who are you taking?
Well, you didn't allow me a chance to say something, so I'm going to say it now.
You say it. You say what you want to say.
I would have avoided the T. Higgins contract entirely.
Really?
He would not have been a guy. Oh, absolutely. $33 million per year for 5 years. You're going to be kicking yourself 3 years from now. You're going to be having a ton of money that you got to deal with. I don't know. This is going beyond the rule book here as far as what dead cap would look like for you. But in our league, based on the dead cap of that, that's going to be an anchor around your neck. So
we're going to clip it and put it out there. We'll see what happens in a couple of years. I think T. Higgins is going to be fine.
And to think that you see CeeDee Lamb for 35 compared to T. Higgins for 33, I mean, that's a screaming value. I think they are light years difference, in my opinion. Based on Joe's, I think he agrees with me on that one.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, definitely. CeeDee Lamb's definitely a cut above of T. Higgins. There's just so much uncertainty there. We know he's going to play this out with the Bengals, but what is going to happen after this? What team does he go to? I know we have seen him flash, but then also, the fact that the injury concerns, he really hasn't been able to stay healthy for a full season. So that scares me as well. Not to mention the 5 years and only $2 million less on a per year basis than CeeDee Lamb.
All right.
So as far as my pick goes, I got to be honest with you. I don't really like a lot of these contracts. So whoever ended up having to sign these contracts, I feel bad for them because there's not a lot of good ones out here. I think I end up going with Amari Cooper here, 2 years. The $6 million I think is a really good value. Cooper is again up there in age, but I still think he probably has 2 years left of production. So I feel okay with that. So. I'm already spending $52 million on Love. I can't spend up on everybody.
Yeah.
So I think $6 million is good value for Cooper.
And you get the second pick now because you're on the turn.
Yeah, I mean, I like guys like Godwin, right? But he's 4 years, $24 million a year. I mean, when you're looking at 2 years from now, you're gonna be in deep trouble. So I even though I like the player, this is where the contract stuff comes in.
Yeah.
Same thing with Ayuk. I feel the same way with Joe. I like the guy, but $32 million for 5 years. I mean, that's per year. That's tough. Give me Stephon Diggs. Again, 2 years, $6 million, same age as Cooper. He's got 1 year with the Texans. I think he'll probably sign somewhere else next year, still be relevant. So again, I'll take the value.
No, I think that's a great value. I think Diggs is good enough that he can, even if he signs elsewhere, he'll be, not DeAndre Hopkins level, but that veteran in a room who might help a young quarterback. So I could see him going to like a Giants if they move on from Daniel Jones and pair him with Malik Neighbors as kind of like the 1-2 punch. You get him for 2 years, $6 million. I think that's a great value. So you got two 31-year-old receivers for 2 years, $6 million. I think that's a really good deal for you there. Joe, you are on the clock.
All right. No, I've already got one.
A quarterback and a flex still.
Yep. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go with Deontay Johnson. 2 years and $6.5 million per year. Going over to the Panthers, I think Canales is able to turn around Bryce Young, and I think Deontay Johnson's going to be a big part of that offense.
Interesting. See, so that was kind of one of the trappings. I was like, man, is he worth $6.5 million? He's shown that he can be good. It is you're banking on Canales and Bryce Young, and I am out on that. I don't think Bryce Young is all that great or special, and I don't think Deontay Johnson is good enough to elevate Bryce Young. So I would have avoided that landmine, but I can see the value there. Steve, what are your thoughts on the Deontay Johnson pick?
I'm actually with Joe. I considered it, believe it or not, it might be opposite day today. But I actually considered Deontay Johnson as well. He's only 29 years old. We saw what Adam Thielen was able to do in that offense, even when Bryce Young was not very good. And Adam Thielen, he's not getting any younger. Deontay, he's a great route runner. I've had my frustrations with him with the drops. But for $6.5 million, why not take the flyer? I highly considered taking Deontay Johnson, Joe. So I think that was a good value.
The other person I was considering was taking D-Hop for the 1 year with 3.5, but I already had Keenan Allen at age 33, so that's why I chose Deontay over him.
Yeah, so that puts me on the clock, and I thought Ayuk was a good deal, but obviously I've got T. Higgins at $33 million and Dak Prescott at 56. So I'm, if we're talking salary cap league, at some point you have a cap. We didn't set one for this draft, so can I fit an Ayuk at $32 million a year for 5 years and kind of mid-max my team where I'm just trying to fill in the holes with scrubs at that point? So I'm actually going to pivot, and I think I am going to go with Javonte Williams, 4 years, $10 million. I think Javonte Williams is still a solid running back. I think this buzz that he's going to get cut from the Broncos is just hogwash. I don't think it happens at all. I think he's going to be 25 when he signs this deal. Like, he's still young enough. Like, he can get 2-3 years out of that. Gets to 28. Maybe he doesn't play that last year of his deal. I'm not worried about the injuries. I think Javonte Williams is a good price. It's a little pricey at $10 million. I'd like to get him at the 8.5 or lower, but for $10 million, I'll take it for 2-3 years of solid production. Steve, what do you think?
Well, I really hope one day I get to play in a salary cap league with you, based on the way that you're managing.
I mean, this could just be my experience on salary caps coming through, but I don't think it's a bad deal based on what I saw.
I think he's the most. I'll just tell you up front, Joe. You could take advantage of this. I won't be drafting a running back in this group here. I don't like any of these contracts, frankly. Of the players that are here, he's probably the one I was most interested in. But I mean, we have our resident Broncos fan over here, so he'll know best here. But I would say the 4 years concerns me. I tend to agree with you. I think him getting cut seems kind of outlandish, unless his knee really isn't healing very well. That's the only thing I could possibly think of. But I think if it was a 2-year deal, I wouldn't have issue with it. But 4 years, that seems like a lot. But what is the Broncos?
Yeah, Joe, what do you think about Javonte Williams this year and his outlook going forward?
Yeah, so it's interesting, Steve. So I already filled up all my flex spots. I completely stayed away from the running back position, but Javonte was really the only one that interested me. But
Agreed.
4 years, $10 million, I wasn't going to touch that. So as far as him getting cut this year, that was just a beat reporter saying that, I don't think it's got any juice. I really don't think Javonte is going to get cut either, but I'm curious to see how he rebounds. So this is the second year removed. Typically, we see guys do better the second year after a knee injury like Javonte suffered. And we know that Sean Payton likes to work multiple backs, so he's not going to, be expected to carry this huge workload either. But you're talking about 4 years and then potentially being 29. I don't honestly know if the Broncos are going to sign him back. I mean, they just drafted Audric Estime. Blake Watson's an undrafted free agent coming in. Jaleel McLaughlin's all the buzz from the minicamp. So they got a lot of guys.
Let me ask you guys this question. At what price point per year would you be in on Javonte Williams? Is it $6 million? Is it $5 million? What's that price point for you where you're like, okay, I'm in? Steve, what's your price point?
At 4 years?
For 4 years, yeah. Would you be in at $5 million a year?
I was gonna say probably 5 because I'm assuming that I'm gonna eat the dead cap in the final 2 years of the deal. So
you'd be out at 6 for 4 years, $6 million a year.
What I'm saying is I already am believing that after year 2 he's a sunk cost. So I'm probably gonna have to eat the money on the contract because I don't know how relevant he'll be anymore. So at that point, I'm trying to think, what would I be willing to justify? So at that point, I feel like if I do $5 million for the 4 years, I think I probably would consider it. I'd be curious to see what Joe thinks.
Joe, what's your price point for being in on Javonte Williams at a 4-year contract?
Yeah, I honestly I wouldn't like him more than 7. I think
7 was going to be my question for you. Would you be in at 7?
Yeah, so I feel like I'd be comfortable with that, but yeah, I mean 10. I'm out at 10.
Would you be in for 8 at 3 years? No. Steve's already out. Joe, are you in or out?
Yeah, I think I'd have to be out. I would prefer him on a 2-year deal of some sort.
I agree. I've a 2-year deal. I agree.
Yeah.
I have no issue with that.
No, I agree with that. And so my last pick here, I am going to take. Oh, this is tough. I've considered Hopkins at 1 year, 3.5. I've considered Pat Freiermuth at 4 years, 9.5. I think he's young enough and will be good enough going forward out of the tight ends. He's really the only tight end I'm really looking at. I think I'm going to take Hopkins, 1 year, 3.5. Looking at my other options with having a lot invested in Higgins and maybe a little too much in Javonte and Dak, I can take the value there at Hopkins at 3.5. So, Joe, what do you think about that pick?
I like it. Like I said, I was considering it a few picks ago, and the fact that it's just a 1-year deal, $3.5 million price. I think this Titans offense honestly has a chance to surprise this year. Steve and I have been doing a decent amount of auction mocks recently, and even if you're in a snake draft, the ADP late in drafts, no matter what style you play, the Titans players are sticking around. The Calvin Ridleys, DeAndre Hopkins of the worlds, they're there for the taking. And I feel like I'm going to be sitting there just taking the value and taking the chance because there is, if Levis is able to grow with Callahan coming over as the coach now, there's a lot of potential, and a guy like Hopkins has a decent ceiling.
Yep. All right, Joe, you're up. You need a quarterback. Who are you taking as your quarterback?
Yeah, I honestly don't love it, but I'll just go with Tua. I did think about maybe just going the cheaper route and maybe going with Russell Wilson on a 2-year deal, but I do think Russell Wilson will be better in Pittsburgh this year with Arthur Smith coming over. But I'll go with Tua, even though it's a risky proposition. I'm not even sure the Dolphins want to pay him the money, and at $54 million, but he is a good enough fantasy quarterback, especially when he plays bad teams. So I feel like I got to take him.
When I structured these contracts, I was trying to bait you with Russell Wilson and trying to bait Steve with Trey Lance and Justin Fields there a little bit, see if he might go for some cheap options because I know how much he loves Trey Lance. I don't think Tua at $54 million for 4 years is a bad deal. It's, I try to structure it's the middle there between Jordan Love and Dak in terms of money and years. I think he's going to be a starter wherever he signs, whether that's Miami or somewhere else. Like, I think he's one of those guys that starts, you look at a Trey Lance, I don't think he's more likely to get a shot than Justin Fields. Russell Wilson might get another year as a bridge quarterback somewhere, but I think the other guys are probably all backups. So, Steve, you're up for the last pick of this draft. Who you taking and why?
For the record, I want to clear my name here. I never said I love.
You love Trey Lance. You absolutely love Trey Lance.
No, I don't. All I'm saying is that in a dynasty league, which you and I happen to be co-managers in, I see value in owning Trey Lance because Dak Prescott currently is not signed by the Cowboys. The Cowboys traded for Trey Lance, and in the event that we see Trey Lance playing any games for the Cowboys, it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility that Dak leaves the Cowboys and they possibly roll with Trey Lance. Is it likely? Probably not. But in a dynasty league, why wouldn't I stash him? So I don't love him. I just see you think he's
done.
Worthless.
He's done. He's done.
Yeah.
He's Josh Rosen.
You would
at this
say
point.
he's hot garbage. You would say he's hot garbage.
Yeah, he's hot. He's hot trash at this point. Yes, he's done. He's probably he's slightly less done than Justin Fields, but I don't see Trey Lance getting a starting job based on the supply and demand of next year and the fact that we've seen nothing for him and no one seems to want him. You probably just want Josh Rosen as well, so I don't know. You just want these high draft pick quarterbacks that are like still out there. You probably want Trubisky as well to be on our team. So, all
right, Joe, be the tiebreaker real quick. Who are you with me or are you with Dustin here?
Yeah, I mean, I lean towards Dustin, but I see your point though, Steve. I do think there is some value of keeping him on the roster because it doesn't hurt. I mean, heck, in our league, somebody had Jake Browning on their roster last year, and he turned out to be a terrific fantasy option. What if he didn't have him on the roster? And probably, I mean, the fact that he was on a cheap contract, maybe even $0 in our league, but. If you had to go on the waiver wire, especially in a dynasty where it's slim pickings during the season, you'd have to really pay up for a backup quarterback like that.
Yeah. All right. So Joe's mostly me. See some of your points, Steve. Steve, who's your last pick here?
Yeah, this is a toss-up for me. I could kind of go in a variety of ways I don't really like. Really anything on the board here. I think this is where, and I'm going to kind of go behind the curtain a little bit. This is where you have to decide, are you going to sacrifice the cap to be able to try to win? So do I take a guy like Ayuk or Godwin who, I might have to deal with their cap implications later on, but my team is going to be really good because I'm going to have Love, Diggs, Cooper, and I'm going to have either Ayuk or Godwin. And, I'm going to be doing really good. But if I don't win, I'm going to deal with cap issues. Yep. So I think at the end of the day, I'll go with a flyer and go with Hollywood Brown, 2 years, 7.5. Like I said, I don't necessarily love it, but I don't feel like I'm all that committed to it. And in the event that he possibly could be, I know Joe doesn't think this, but in the event he could be very good with Mahomes and the Chiefs, I like the upside there. If he doesn't do well with the Chiefs, he could flame out. And then if that's the case, now I'm on the hook for a bad contract next year. So I'm taking kind of a gamble at this point. But I'm not willing to get in cap trouble and going for guys like Godwin or Ayuk at this point.
Yeah, I structured this deal specifically with the thought that Hollywood has a good year. Not a great year, but a good year with Kansas City, and then kind of goes somewhere and you don't know, like, is he going to be good or can he be bad again? Like, does he re-sign with Kansas City? So when I was building this contract, it was like, okay, does he get kind of that I've had one good year, but it was also with the best quarterback in the league and they have no other receiver weapons behind except for Travis Kelce type year. And that kind of gives them that bump from 7 to 7.5 compared to like a $6 million or a $5.5 million. So I don't think Hollywood Brown's a bad pick. You might have to deal with some cap history, some cap issues, some dead cap in the second year, but I don't think it's a bad pick. Joe, what do you think about that pick?
Yeah, with the board, I feel like even though I'm not the biggest Hollywood Brown fan, I probably would have done the same thing.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah. The fact that he is on the Chiefs offense and the other options there have been inconsistent. So and Hollywood Brown hasn't played with the best quarterbacks. I'm not the biggest fan of Kyler Murray, and honestly, even when he was there, Murray was hurt a lot. So it will be interesting to see what he's able to do, with the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. So let me ask you guys a couple of follow-up questions. Brandon Ayuk goes undrafted at 5 years, $32 million. At what price point would you be in on Ayuk at a 5-year deal?
I don't think it's the price point. I think it's the years. I think
Years?
for me personally. I don't know about you. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah. Yeah. The years is what scares me. I mean, 32, could be a little high, but I factor in the years more than the money because I mean, in our league we can kind of put the money where we want it and manipulate the contracts. So
The cap's not
years
real,
is
so
what
you
I
can move it
focus on.
around. Yeah. Interesting. So if that was a 3-year deal, you guys might be a little more into it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a great tip for people getting into salary cap leagues. I think people would look more at the money, and you guys are saying look more at the years. More so than the money. You still obviously want to pay attention to money, but I think the years are a bigger factor for you guys than money. So
I would say for sure. Absolutely. I mean, that's what I look into. I look at the years. I mean, the money, I mean, I agree with Joe. I think it's a little high. 32 is definitely high for Ayuk. But I mean, I would think in this right now, he's in his prime. I think if you did a 3-year contract, I feel pretty safe that over the next 3 years, he should continue to perform. So I'm not that concerned. But if you're talking about 5 years, I can't really assure you that year 4 and year 5, he's going to do really well. And at $32 million, I mean, just think about this, right? And this is where you don't have it in a salary cap league. But think if you were paying, I'm trying to think of a player, but think if you're paying $32 million for like a Julio Jones. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
someone that just dropped off. Yeah, you do get those guys who
just
just fall off the face of the earth. I mean, like a Todd Gurley, right? You probably paid up for him a couple years ago, and then all of a sudden he was really good one year, and then he was dust. So, well, that's good. Let us know in the comments which team you guys like.
I think that's why Steve and I were hesitant with the running backs too, because that is the scare, especially with some of these multi-year contracts. Like a Todd Gurley, just the way that these guys fall off. Tend to like those guys on shorter term deals as well.
No, I agree. Well, that's been our draft. Thanks, guys, for drafting. Let us know in the comments who you thought was the best picks for this draft. Thank you guys so much for coming on the first episode of Bridge the Gap. Steve, Joe, thank you. I couldn't appreciate you guys more. The support you guys have given me over the past couple of years, being good friends. I can't wait to see you in a couple weeks at the Fantasy Football Expo. We're going to room together again this year, so it's going to be fun. Tell everyone where they can find you guys one last time before we get out of here.
Well, I'd be remiss to just mention, Dustin's, a guy that I've been really blessed to know during this time since he's introduced, really helped us introduce so many people in the fantasy community to us. Dustin truly gives back to so many people. I hope this, podcast does really well for you because, you deserve it and you really do care about so many people. So I'm thankful for your friendship and for your willingness to come on. You can follow us again at Front Office Pros, Steve_FOP. I got Joe_FOP. Would really appreciate your support on our YouTube channel. We're around 631 subscribers.
Yeah.
We'd really like to hit 1,000. That'd be a great milestone for us, as well as we continue to put, all our audio as well out on Apple and Spotify. You could check us out on any of those. We greatly appreciate your support.
Yeah. Joe, anywhere they can find you, what's the best way to contact you? If they have questions, what's the best way of reaching out? Is it through Twitter? Is it on a comment on one of your YouTube videos? What's the best way to reach you guys if they have questions about a salary cap league?
Yeah, I think on Twitter is probably the preferred. Just send us a direct message. But if you do leave comments on our YouTube channel, we do answer those as well. And really like the different input from the people and questions. And honestly, Steve and I are really there to help people. And if you are interested in getting into a salary cap league, we definitely would like to help you, guide you along the process, because I know when Steve and I were first getting into this, there really wasn't too many references that we could really go to. So if we can be a sounding board for somebody and help them get into it and really kind of grow that space, we'd love to do that.
I agree. Reach out to these guys, drop them a follow on Twitter, and subscribe to their YouTube. Thanks for tuning in to Bridge the Gap, and we'll see you next week, 10 p.m. Eastern, every Tuesday night. Look forward to seeing you guys then. See you later.
Thanks for tuning in to Bridge the